Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blabbit. It's great to have you aboard for our weekly podcast. Blabbit is the place where experts come to share their thoughts, their insights, and to blab their secrets. And today will be no exception from that. As always, Blabbit is sponsored by Open Doors, your platform for maximizing employee engagement. My name is Paul Geiger. I'm a public speaking coach and presentation expert out of New York City. And what I do is make sure that people have clarity in their messaging and they get over public speaking anxiety and they feel good about doing their presentations. Yes, there is a way to pull all of that off. And I can show you. I won't show you today, but I can show you. Hey, Glenn.
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Good. For those of you who don't already know the austere Glenn Ingram, please inform them.
I would be happy to. My name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working for the last 20 years helping people have better messages, listening to people better, and communicating better, AKA maybe selling a thing or two. So it's always good to get out of your own way, talk to your clients, and provide solutions. Good morning, MerriLyn. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. It's noon here, so almost done with the morning. Doing very well. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome. Share a few moments about yourself, please.
Yes. So my company is called Assistance for Hire. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary, so that's a very big deal for us.
Congrats.
Thank you. Our main business is a virtual assistance company with a team approach. So we really are helping our clients take their admin to-do lists off their plate so that they can focus on the parts of their business they love and the parts of their business that are really going to make them more money at the end of the day. And now I've started a second tier, which is productivity coaching. And I've been doing it unofficially for about a year with 2 clients and just added my third. And now it is officially launched and just really helping people figure out their own flow of the time frame that they are really the most productive because it is individualized, and then really creating a systematic way for accountability and prioritization every week so that they can be more productive.
Mm-hmm. Well, MerriLyn, we are all coaches and we all work with clients and we all deal in best practices. So being more productive, obviously, is something that everybody would love to be able to do. Just like everybody would love to be better at sales, people would love to be better at public speaking. Mm-hmm. So do your clients come to you? Is the need desperate by the time that they get to you? In other words, do they need you to evaluate that they really, really need better productivity, that they need some help with virtual assistants? Or is it the sort of thing where they don't understand what's going on and you have to assess?
So it's all of the above. I'm gonna give you 2 scenarios of 2 of my first coaching clients. So the first coaching client, productivity coaching client, was a man about a year ago who came to me with our typical consult call. This is the consult call I do for A4H consistently. And after we got done with the consult call and I gave him a list of kind of the things that we could do for him for outsourcing, he came back and he said, I'll just be really honest with you. There's no way I can pay a monthly fee at this price. Would you just be willing to do a weekly call with me to help me reorganize and prioritize so that I do it for myself? And I said, sure, let's give it a go. Never had tried it before. And his big goal and his big pain point was that he is a writer. He is a writer like that is how he makes his income. He gets paid to write for other people. He teaches a writing class at Stanford. This is really his gig. But his pain point was that he'd been trying to write a memoir for 8 years and hadn't been able to accomplish it. And so we started working together, and lo and behold, a year later, his memoir is completed. It is done. It is finished. It is going to a publisher and editor soon. And it really was just a matter of figuring out how does he work? So he really came to me with like, I have so much overwhelm, but I really can't afford, a $500 ticket or a $700 ticket a month. So we worked on a smaller scale. The second client I started working with also came to me for a consult call, but I actually am the one that presented productivity coaching to her because I said, you know how to do all of this. You're really good at it. And she's in the graphics industry. She does graphics and branding. I think really what you need is an accountability partner and just somebody to strategize on how you can really prioritize what you do every day to get things done. And that was a very successful conversation. And so it went both ways. Both ways went there. And then there's the combo. There are the people that are really they really have no interest in doing it for themselves, right? And they're just ready to pay for the outsourcing. And that's where the assistance for hire comes in, and we really just do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think more pertaining to your latter client, I know I talk to a lot of solopreneurs that turn transcended into entrepreneurs when they start having people work for them or work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been trying to convey to them over the last couple of years is identifying what you don't like to do, what you're maybe not as good at, because we all have been guilty of wasting a lot of time putting off, fighting with, doing things that we don't like to do, and not really doing the things that we like to do and we're good at that can really benefit our company. So as you're talking to these entrepreneurs, how do you help them kind of identify their personalities, find out what they're good at, and explain to them that it may cost you X to get this off your plate, but if you're doing Y and bringing in 2, 3, 4 times that, isn't that a good investment?
Yes, I think that's the hardest thing to actually, in my business, to convince somebody of, because the retort is consistently, well, I can do it myself. And in most cases you can. I mean, most people can look at their own emails and write back emails. Most people can handle their schedules and get people on their calendars. Most people can do some type of a social media campaign, right? Most people can write some type of a newsletter. Are they good at it? That's and is it worth their time? Even if they are good at it, is it worth your time to spend? I'll tell you, on most cases, when I start doing these consults, I'll see that they're spending about 1 to 1.5 hours a day, sometimes 2 hours a day in email. And they don't enjoy it. It's, I have them rank the enjoyment level. They're ranking it like a 2 out of 5. And I'll say something like, well, then why do you keep on doing it? And they're like, because if I, that just seems something ridiculous to pay somebody else to do when I can do it myself. And I say, well, is it really ridiculous? Because if you could convert those 2 hours into billable hours, and most people that are really good in their trade, at least in New York City, where I'm also from, just like Paul, most people bill for their skill set that they're in business for between $100 and $250 an hour. That's a pretty average rate for most things in New York. There's obviously higher end. We have the attorneys that are $500 an hour. We have the lower end that maybe the startups that are trying to build lower so they build their businesses, but that's average. And I'll say, so isn't it worth you being able to go out and bill for those 2 hours at $100 an hour, and then really paying somebody else at between $40 and $60 an hour to do those emails? And what's your net profit at this point? Plus, what's your enjoyment level at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. So it's almost, whether you're good at it or not, isn't also a consideration whether you can be consistent at it? Because with all of these things that you're talking about, screening emails, social media campaigns, newsletters, copywriting, content creation,
Mm-hmm.
you really need to be consistent. And I know I've had this discussion with Glenn. If you're only going to put a week into it or 2 weeks to see what the results are, you're not really serious about seeing what the results are.
Correct. And I feel like both of you know I'm speaking your language in some aspect here, but you get those people that are coming in that are super excited. They're like, oh, I need to revamp my LinkedIn, right? So they'll go in, they'll take a course, they'll get super excited about it. They'll be really consistent for a month. They'll do 4 hours a week for a month straight, sending out connect requests, getting everything on social media, active engagement every day for an hour, right? Guess what happens after a month? They're completely burnt out. You never see them again for another year. They don't exist. They're washed away. So yes, it is absolutely the long game. And I always tell people, if you are going to do it yourself, start small. I mean, start with one post a week on a Wednesday or a Tuesday through Thursday. Pick a day and spend 30 minutes of engagement on Fridays where you send out connect requests and you respond to people's posts, and just start there. See if you can stay that consistent, and then you can build from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, there are automations do the stuff. There are people that do stuff by themselves and stuff like that. And I've been sharing with a group that I'm in the same thing. There's a private investigator that he's always out doing surveillance. That when he's in his car, he brings up his phone, he gets on LinkedIn, and he tries to connect to 5 to 10 people. It's amazing if you can do that on a lunch break when you're just sitting there eating at your computer, not really doing anything else, maybe checking social media. How about being productive and do something a little bit? Gets a little bit.
Yeah. Consistency is the name of the game with all digital marketing techniques, probably with most sales techniques, I would say, and outreach and lead generation. It's been statistically proven over and over again. It's not the frequency of social media, it's the consistency of social media. So if you actually post one time a month, but it's always on the first Monday of the month at 10 a.m., you will actually get more traction than if you post randomly throughout the month 10 times, but they're all over the place. Like, I was out to lunch with my kid and I posted a cute picture with my kid on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. And then I remembered a week later, oh yeah, I'm supposed to put that post for the promo on Blabbit. Okay, I'll post that at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're actually going to get more traction on that one time a month if you stay consistent.
Well, and don't you find it interesting, kind of back to what we were just talking about there, that people don't understand that these things are a long game. I mean, and I made this comment yesterday when someone asked about, which social medias are you using? And I explained to them, there are no social media platforms. There are advertising platforms that portray themselves as social media engagements. Because with all of them, we're seeing the algorithm is you are lucky if 10% of the people that are following you, friends with you or whatever, are seeing something on your post, unless you're doing something to create engagement, consistency like you're talking about. So how easy is it for you, and this is a loaded question, to get people to understand that this isn't something you do for a day, for a week, for a month? If you want to do this, and you have to look at your numbers. If you have 100 people following you, 8 to 9 people are going to see it. 1,000, 80 to 90. So if you don't put the time to grow your audience, if you aren't consistent with what you're doing, you're really wasting your time.
Yes, that is, it has to be part of our messaging, because what we do for our clients is typically not how they're going to see immediate dollars, right? Like, it is going to be an investment in paying our company to do things for them. And it is going to be an investment that they will start seeing. They're going to, again, be able to convert the hours that we're producing for them into billable hours. And if we're talking about digital marketing, most digital marketing takes 10 to 12 months of consistent engagement, marketing, campaigning to get any traction. So it's like, you get those clients that say, but I haven't gotten one lead from social media and it's been 3 months, right? But that's not how social media works, or digital marketing, or LinkedIn, or engagement, or even most marketing campaigns like email campaigns and newsletters. They don't create something really fast. So how do I explain it? I try to give my personal story, because in 5 years, I've gotten one person ever who found me on LinkedIn that became a client. One in 5 years. I've been consistently, and we are extremely consistent of posting, engagement, etc., especially on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are our two platforms we really invest in. That we post. We post 6 days a week, 5 days a week. It's always at 11 a.m. We do 60 minutes of engagement that I pay one of my team members to do on LinkedIn. We do at least 60 minutes a week of engagement on LinkedIn as well. That I also now have paid another team member to do for me, which is great. Just started that process. I'm finally using my team to do my work for me. However, what happens consistently? I don't get new leads, but I get old leads. I get people that I haven't talked to for 3 or 4 years that send me like messages, instant messages saying something like this. Hey, MerriLyn, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you at such and such an event, and I'm ready for your services now. I'm wondering if we can have a conversation. The last person this happened to, she is now a client. She contacted me in March. I met her in 2019. But how does she stay connected with me? It is through my social media engagement. She sees me on a regular basis, so she remembers who I am.
I have had very similar experiences where people who I haven't spoken to for a long, long time say to me, well, I've been seeing some of the things that you're doing. And the only way they can do that, because they don't live next door, is to see my social media posts.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you, I am probably most active on LinkedIn, but I do have a presence on the other social media platforms as well. And usually that's where people who are business people go to really check you out if they don't already know you. But I do get a lot of people who just say, well, I saw you on the internet. I Googled you and I come up regionally for public speaking. And part of that is with the assistance of Mr. Glenn Ingram, of course, taking care of all of that business. Thank you, sir. So that I do show up when people go looking.
Yeah.
So if I get a question, kind of expand on what we were just talking about, because it amazes me how this blows people's minds, how they argue with me and don't understand the value of reciprocity and giving something away for free. Let's talk about social media, for instance, if you're doing things like that. It's amazing that I've been sharing videos with people in circles, people in groups. This is how you create a Facebook page. This is how you create a Google map. Little things like this that I think people overcharge maybe sometimes for things like this because they're not very difficult. And it's amazing by sharing things that you do every day, Paul does every day, or I do every day, and we take for granted, the people are like, oh my God, that's so awesome. Hey, can you do this for me? Mm-hmm. It's like putting a worm on a hook and bringing back a big fish. Yeah. So do you try and have your consultants just understand the value of sharing things for free, giving things away that they think are maybe not valuable, but other people think are huge?
Glenn, you really need to go to our blog. I constantly tell people, if you want to trade secrets of A4H, we have an entire archive of them. There is a blog on how do you do a process of consistent engagement for LinkedIn. There is a blog called How Do You Start Your Own Podcast, which I did not write. One of my team members wrote because that's what she does as her side gig. I wrote an entire blog on how do you assess what you should outsource first. I gave away my entire process. So I do believe in transparency. I was doing a lot of webinars in the past. I did stop doing them this year, but I would love to bring them back, where I just taught people small things, created a process for them, or LinkedIn, or I did one on how do you create a marketing plan, a social media marketing plan for a year. Just things like that, because I also agree when you teach people how to do things, one, you become the expert of it, right? They trust you. They trust that you know what you're talking about and what you're doing. That's another reason why I think it's really important for us as a company to be putting out great social media, to be putting out great blogs, to be putting out great newsletters, because that's what we're doing for our clients. If we don't produce it for ourselves, then I think that's hypocritical of us to say, well, you should do it, but we're not going to do it ourselves, right? I mean, that's part of the reason. But it's also because if you are transparent and you tell people your trade secrets, you gain value, you gain expertise. And then what happens is they realize they don't want to do it by themselves, or they can't do it for themselves, right? They're like, all right, not my bag of tricks. You go ahead and do it for me.
So that makes me think about the terms done for you and done with you. So there's an interesting distinction. I was just thinking about that as you were describing what you were describing, and isn't it always a done with rather than a done for? And when you give all of that information, isn't there a little bit of an overwhelm that can occur, which is actually just natural? Because if you want to be able to do something really well in all of our fields of expertise, there are a lot of moving parts that really do go into it. What do you think, Glenn?
Well, you know what I started thinking about when you started talking about that was I had a client from back where we used to live in the Midwest that I just ran into by accident in October. And also they want to talk to us because we used to do this much of their marketing, but they were tired of having people that didn't play nice together, and they would point fingers back and forth. And they said, can you come on and just manage everything for us? I said, sure, I'll manage it. You know what I do, but I'll bring on people for you and help you manage it so you don't have to worry about being a marketing manager. And it was a very interesting learning experience for me because I had to fight so much with these people that did this little niche and this little niche and this little niche to do it with transparency instead of the way they were taught by some guru that I'm going to hold on to this and I own this property, or I'm going to have this and it's going to be my property. I'm like, no, this is what we're going to do because we're putting the client's interest first. It's hard, I think, to find people in that industry that understand that it's about the client. It's not about them. When you put them first, they're going to come to you and stay with you longer. And it was interesting, whether we're talking about social media, PPC, different things like that. It was hard to find people that would do something and offer full disclosure. It was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I don't think that you can, and I know you agree, you both actually agree with this statement. I don't think you can give away enough. I really don't, because in the end, it just keeps progressing. What it is that we do is it's not a finite methodology. It's always, as you were saying earlier, MerriLyn, you're learning and you're evolving, like you with your productivity coaching. I was just thinking, wow, you are about to go down some interesting roads, because there are a lot of people where productivity is a very personal thing. What is it that I want to produce? What obstacles do I need to get out of the way so that I can achieve the aspirations that I possess?
Yeah, it's been fun. I was just going to add to that also, because you guys know that I was a golf professional for years and years and years, 16 years.
And are you thinking about joining the Live Tour now?
I am not.
Sorry, it's been the news a little bit lately.
Yeah, I know it's all over the news. It's pretty interesting. But side point, but there's a good metaphor for this that I'm thinking of, and that is, you can give someone all the knowledge of how to swing a golf club properly, but whether they can execute it or not is really entirely on them and how well you teach them, of course. Yes. But not so in this case, I'm like, whether we give everything out in trade secrets and what we do, not everyone can execute it. I mean, part of our secret sauce is our ability to execute what we do super well. And that's why we become great at what we do. It's not just because we have the knowledge. All the knowledge is out there. I mean, you can YouTube anything, but can you actually execute it in a way that produces results? And I think that's where all three of us can say we know we differentiate.
Well, it's interesting. I use the golf metaphor all the time. because I have swung a club a few times. I'm not even going to say that I've golfed. I've actually swung a club a few times. And just like public speaking, the thing that frustrates me the most is the inconsistency, just
Yes.
not being consistent. And really, that is the definition of an expert, is someone who has a very high consistency rate at a particular skill, who
Yeah.
can do it on demand. And not 100% of the time, because we all, we're all fallible to a certain point. But it amazes me, after I've been instructed about what to do and what not to do, and then I think that I'm doing everything right, but it doesn't make the fairway.
So this is a fun statistic that most people don't know. And it, everything is about muscle memory when you're retraining a physical swing or a physical movement. This could be anything with sports or athletic training or weight training, running. But it actually takes your body 60 to 70 motions to actually initiate that it's changing from its muscle memory. 60 to 70. So that means if I'm teaching someone to do a change in their golf swing, they need to practice that change 60 to 70 times before it even starts to initiate a switch. And so how does that translate into so many things in business? It does. Because we think we're going to get something really quick, like, oh, I'm going to switch over. I'm now going to do a weekly post for social media, and I'm going to change my SEO, and I'm going to take these amazing public speaking courses so that I can present myself better on video, right? And I'm going to do that for a month straight, and nothing happens.
Yeah,
Try doing it for 60 weeks straight, and then let's see if something happens.
exactly. Well, 6 is the magic number, because Glenn has heard me say this. I tell my clients who want to know, how long is it going to take? And so, in a sort of ambiguous way, but yet giving them some sort of framework or some sort of grounding, I say, you'll see noticeable change in 6 weeks and lasting change in 6 months, meaning that you will become aware of some of the things that you can do, but will you be able to call upon them when the stakes are high, when you are in the spotlight? No, you
Right.
won't. Maybe 1 or 2 of them. And depending on what your skill set is to begin with, maybe 6 weeks will be enough to at least get you moving in the right direction. But you really can't count on having it be integrated. And like you say, I use muscle memory all the time, usually 6 months. And people are amazed how much public speaking confidence is based in the physical and not the mental.
Mhm. And
I was
a
just
lot more of it is actually the mental.
It's not.
It's not. Really.
Because the main reason is because the reactions often, when it comes to public speaking anxiety, the reactions, the physical manifestation of public speaking anxiety usually triggers in the brain ahead of logic. So yes, you have to become aware. You have to become aware of certain things, but you have to be able to replace behavior. So that's one of the most crucial things, the piece that most people leave out.
Well, I had to go through and make sure that I purchased the URL before I said this, because what this started thinking about is maybe our next podcast is the 6-inch bottleneck, because we all know the biggest bottleneck is the 6 inches between our ears.
Yes.
True.
Well, and I think it's similar with a golf swing. It's similar with business and trying to get people to get out of their own way. I know personally, like I used to golf a lot more, it was still frustrating that when you would say, I'm going to take this easy 3/4 swing because I really think I have too much club, and you hit a 6-iron 220. It's like a 6-iron doesn't go 220 for me. But when you hit it easy and get out of your own way and let the club do its job, it works a lot better.
It absolutely does.
Now, when it comes to asking for help, we all know that men won't ask for directions, but who asks for help more readily, men or women?
Are we talking about in my business specifically now?
In your business, yes.
That's also a really interesting question. because I'm thinking about, what percentage of my consult calls are men versus women? And definitely women are much better asking for help in golf than men are. And I would still say, now that I'm kind of calculating in my head, I do get more consult calls from women than men.
Interesting. Okay.
I still do. Yeah.
And it's interesting. Is it a perceived weakness thing? Is it I can do it myself? I'm a captain of industry sort of thing that makes men less willing to ask for help?
That would be my theory, Paul. I'm sticking to it. That's definitely, we could have a conversation about this for a long time about sexism in golf. I've definitely experienced a lot of sexism in the golf industry. But the most ironic thing for me would be me literally being on a setting, on a golf course, giving a lesson to one of my students, and a very typical average golfer that was notably average would come over and actually interrupt my lesson and give instruction on top of me.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Doesn't it happen so often? I can't even tell you. Or they would come correct my swing. They'd be like, "Oh, I don't think you're bringing the club back correctly." And I'm like, if you can come out and beat me on the golf course, then we can have this conversation. Right? Can we take this to the course, and then that can be the deciphering factor?
Right. Put your money where your mouth is. And were you instructing another female golfer? Is that?
Not always.
Not always. Okay.
Not always. Sometimes it was men. It usually happened when I was doing playing lessons, because I used to go on the actual course with my students. Was I always easily identified as the pro? Most likely they did not identify me as the pro because I was a female. But I would be, on the tee box giving some instruction, and they would just, come in and replace my instruction.
Well, and I think there's a good crossover analogy I have from this, because even if you have a bad swing or a bad looking swing in golf, if you're consistent, you can still score well.
You can, absolutely. And I will say that a woman, this never happened with a woman. A woman would never come in and tell me that I didn't know what I was saying and correct me. This only was something men would do.
All right.
The reason I was saying that, one time when we lived back in Nebraska, I had someone call me at 11 o'clock on a Friday and said, "Hey, we're teeing off at noon." I'm like, "I'm working." He's like, "Just shut up and get here." So I shut up and I got there. We teed off at noon, and someone joined us on the back nine. And I saw this guy swing at first, and I kind of looked at my buddy and I said, "Who the heck is this guy?" And he goes, "I'll tell you in a little bit." Yeah, I was Mickelson's roommate in college at ASU that had a funky swing that was a one handicap.
Yeah, he's very famous. He's known in the golf world. Yeah. You could also say Fred Furyk. Fred Furyk has like one of the ugliest golf swings known to men and a very, very successful golf career.
So let's take that and bring it back into business here a little bit.
Yes,
so
let's do it.
Even if we have maybe we don't think we're good speaking in a video, maybe we don't think we're good at writing. Again, if we have a good plan to execute, even if it's not in our strong suit or our wheelhouse, we're probably going to be more effective just by executing as opposed to not. There was a conference I went to a few years ago, and the one thing I got from it I loved was constant imperfect action. Because the guy said, if you wait until you master something, you will miss thousands of dollars that you stepped over in the meantime. So how do we get people to understand action is better than perfection?
I'll start with what's resonating with me. And I do this for myself, and I do this with my clients as well, because budget is always a concern. We are all in the business world. We all understand that if it's not budgetarily feasible, it's just not doable. So when I start with a lot of my solopreneurs or startups, and they're looking for sometimes we're their first hire. They've never had a team member. They've never outsourced anything. We're the first hire. is I always start with what is your budget? Because I can do a lot of consistent actions with almost any budget. You can do $400 a month. I can create a consistent process for you that's going to actually help you. If you have $1,000 a month, I can also create a consistent practice for you, but that's a very different scenario, right? The $400, maybe I'm doing a once a week LinkedIn post. I'm creating a weekly process where I'm sending out lead generation emails, either through your private email or through your LinkedIn engagement. And that's really all we can do with that budget. But you're going to start seeing results in 3 to 4 months in that those connections. I'll give you an example. We started with a $400 budget with a client who almost had no LinkedIn presence. He had less than 100 connects. We revamped his LinkedIn, profile itself. We started doing a once a week campaign, and that started in September. And now he has 1,300 people connected to him on LinkedIn. He's told me that he's at least 15 conversations he can trigger back to us sending connect requests of connecting directly on LinkedIn. And, it's a very soft connect request first. And once they say yes, then we ask them to get on a phone call with the client. And he's had at least 15 conversations that have been leads for him since we started that process. And that's just with a $400 budget. Very small process, but it is consistent. The weekly process is that every week that LinkedIn post goes up on a Wednesday. Every Friday is when we do our 30 minutes of requests and engagement on his direct messaging.
Do you find that the Friday requests, that's the sweet spot for that? Because people do sort of look at the requests that they're getting. I mean, they do get an email notification. I know I do if anybody asks. So they could ask on a Monday or a Wednesday, but are you saying that Friday is just a lighter work day, I guess, and the brain can process a little bit more, and maybe we're a little bit more charitable on Fridays?
It's not necessarily Friday. I'd say end of the week. People just start slowing down at the end of the week, and they seem to have either they are completely overwhelmed, and so they are spending more time on social media. Like we do it as a lot of people do it as a deferral from doing work, right? They're procrastinating work. So they go on social media like, oh, I'm still doing something. I'm looking at my LinkedIn, right? But they're just doing it not to have to work because they're tired. They're kind of worn out from the week.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, the first part of the week, we just don't see a ton of traction on anything at the beginning of the week on LinkedIn. People are very much in the throes of coming off the weekend. Monday is I would never encourage somebody to do a direct messaging campaign on LinkedIn on a Monday because you're going to get very few responses.
Right.
So Wednesday through Friday. I like Friday just because it does seem to be a slower time. And at the end of the day, most people, even if they don't see it on Friday, are going to see it Monday morning because they're going to get their notification on Monday or Tuesday, and they'll come back and follow up when they, again, come back a week later on a Thursday, Friday, or a Wednesday when they're back onto their LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to, again, talk about these solopreneurs and about budgets, as we talked about pricing. Sometimes at the beginning, I tell people, if you don't value your business and don't price it accordingly, the clients aren't going to respect you either. Because when you talk about these $300 a month, $500 a month, $800, $1,000 a month clients, in my experience, a lot of times dealing with customers, the $300 or $400 a month client is a lot more of a pain in your butt than the $3,000 or $5,000 a month client. So how do you help these solopreneurs, entrepreneurs understand how to value themselves and how to understand that some clients maybe aren't the best clients for them?
Wow, this is something I think all of us have had experience indirectly with. Unfortunately, I think at the beginning, a lot of us don't have a lot of choice or the knowledge to know how to choose. I mean, I had a lot of clients I didn't really love working with in the first couple of years of business because I needed money. You just have to take some bad apples in there that are not a great fit for you because you need the cash flow. So there is something to be said for you just have to do what you have to do sometimes. There is also understanding what works for you, right? I mean, the best thing I did in my business to help me figure out who a good working client is for me, and I won't even say they're all bad apples. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. You don't have complementary communication styles, and you just can't seem to get on the same page. That has maybe nothing to do with anyone other than you're just not a good fit for each other. But I started doing a consult call as my mandatory process. And it is a paid consult. It's 1 hour. I send them, again, I wrote a blog on it if you want to read it. It's called How to Get More Done in 2021. And I send them an administration assessment that they have to fill out before the call. And then that call really becomes 1 hour of onboarding. I'm having them show me the screen share. I'm starting a strategy with them. I will say a lot of times people have an idea of what exactly they need as a virtual assistant. And I may come in that call and say, you're telling me that you want somebody in your inbox once a day. But to me, it really feels like we need to create an active engagement for lead generation with some direct email campaigning, some LinkedIn procedures. That to me feels like that's your biggest need in your business right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives us the opportunity to have open conversation and just see if there is a good fit. I didn't necessarily think that 1 hour could do the trick, but I have had so few clients that I have not had great relationships with since I started that process.
Well, you're providing solutions. Basically, you are, and I have had this, and I know we all have experienced this. Have you ever had a client at the end of just a half hour, 45 minutes say, you've already given me so much information. You've already told me so much. I can't wait to start working with you because I can't imagine what the rest is going to be like. It's going to be very, very enlightening. And it usually is.
Yeah. And it's just as rewarding for me. I just had a call with a client I've had for 3 years, and we were just, she presented me with some challenges that she's not filling up her calendar in May. And I just started going off with strategies. Okay, what if we try to do this with your a promo email? What if we went into your website and we actually just consolidated the language around your services? What if we sent this email campaign to the top 25 people that are your referral partners? And she was just like, oh my gosh, I love talking to you. You always have such great ideas. That's equally rewarding for me.
So for that onboarding questionnaire and that onboarding call that you're paid for, have you received any resistance to that from anybody?
Yes, I have.
And what did that probably tell you?
That they're not a good fit for me.
Anyone watching this, listen to that, because that's huge.
Yep.
Now, do you have a requirement about length of time you're working with somebody? Because we were talking about, you can't really expect to see results we were referring to muscle memory in 60 attempts or 60 repetitions. We were talking about time, 3 to 4 months. Is it a minimum? Because I know that I have a minimum, because otherwise you're going to say that I failed you. If you do it for a short amount of time, nothing is going to happen.
This is such a conflicting question that I consistently go back and forth on. And I've had conversations with my business coach about it. Ours is not, believe it or not. It is a month-to-month contract with a 15-day requirement for cancellation that renews on the first of the month. However, it mostly works for us. We really don't get clients that leave us before 6 months. I'd say over half of our clients now are in the year to year and a half mark. And yes, I have had that conversation with myself multiple times that, should I at least initiate a 6-month minimum so that we can create some traction for them? But it's worked so far, Paul. Hopefully it continues to work for us.
Well, in the sales process, right, Glenn, the sales process, you would say that having no minimum requirement is basically reducing friction to sale, because it just gives people the impression that they're in control of use in an ongoing way.
Yes, but I love MerriLyn's response to that, because in working for a marketing and advertising company for 10 years before I started my own, I learned everything people hate about marketing and advertising. So I agree with her. My contract, I require a 30-day notice just because some of our stuff that's just the way I do it. However, when we start, I say, Paul, for us to get to where you want, I need X amount of months. You understand that? Paul shakes his head, yes. I make sure it's in an email that Paul understands. And I like being big brother, so I know that Paul has opened this email. And then when 3 or 4 months, Paul calls me and goes, Glenn, this just isn't working. Paul, you remember the email I sent you on April 5th? When we had that conversation, I told you it was going to take this amount of time. Yeah. Have we reached that time point yet? No. You can leave if you want, but I told you it would take X amount of time. So I believe in a handshake for an agreement, a length of time. But legally, you want to leave and don't like me? I don't want your money. Go ahead and go somewhere else.
The other thing that I do think is an advantage, and Glenn, I'm paying attention. I'm like, I could definitely get a little bit more clear on that wording and have it in some documentation. That's really good advice.
Wait, you mean that I'm not the only one that learns something every Friday here on Blabbit?
Amazing.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm like taking mental notes right now. I might write that down after this call. But I think there's also a lot of people that have had bad experience with VAs. A lot of people that are coming to us are coming because they're saying to me, well, I tried 3 VAs before you, and I'll tell you the 3 pain points that I've heard for VA companies. 1, they're offshore. I've actually had people that have come to me that have told me that they have, they've actually been robbed by the companies. They give them financials, and then the VA goes out and buys a bunch of things on their credit card and then disappears. Which I'm not saying that couldn't happen not being offshore, but it seems to be a consistent message with offshore VAs. The second thing that I hear on a consistent basis is that they're great for a while, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. There's no accountability or consistency, and they'll give them an assignment and won't hear from them for 2 weeks, and then they'll come back and do a great job, and then they won't hear from them for 2 weeks. And then the third one is that they're just bad, right? They're just bad at what they do, right? I got myself in a 6-month contract, and she did okay, and it's usually a she. That is a little sexist. It could be a he as well, or a they. But she did, she did great for a week, and then all of a sudden I realized she forgot the hashtags, and then she forgot to post correctly, or there was a misspelling that got posted, etc. So those are the 3 main pain points that we hear. And so a lot of them really want the opportunity to try us out first before they like the idea of a month-to-month, so they can see how we do long-term.
Well, I can tell you, as someone that's had a team of VAs working for me for almost a decade now, that the problem and why most people should work with someone like you is because they think, hey, I can say, Paul, go do this. And Paul's going to know exactly what I'm expecting, exactly what I'm looking for, how to do it. And they don't manage or be productive like you talk about. I see the biggest problem when someone says, my VA didn't do this or they didn't do that. And I said, well, did you set up a criteria that I want to report every day by the end of doing stuff? You still have to manage people, even if they're doing something for you. And if their expectation isn't meeting your deliverables, you probably didn't convey that very well. So I think that's the biggest problem I see with people working with VAs offshores is they don't understand. I still have to manage. I still have to communicate. I still have to check to make sure the job is done right. Because I think it doesn't matter where you're at in the country, in the world, the propensity is to do the least amount of work possible. And if someone's not watching you, that least amount is going to decrease and decrease and decrease. So when you can have someone to manage these people for you, then you don't have to manage it yourself. So I understand a lot of people coming to you because they don't know how to manage people. They didn't learn how to do this from the beginning, and they don't know how to hire people.
Yeah. And are most of the SOPs, the systems of process, are they consistent, or is there anything that's really unique to a particular business, proprietary, or is it pretty much there's basically 12 SOPs that you have to follow, and your people know how to do them all?
Yeah, so yes. So the answer to that is, and I consistently tell this in my messaging, because people say, well, what are the industries that you work in? And I say what you're not supposed to say in business. Everybody tells you you're supposed to have a niche, you're supposed to have your industries. And I say I am industry agnostic because of what Paul just said. The processes are the same. If you want a social media campaign, the SOP is exactly the same. It's just whether you want that 5 days a week or you want that 1 day a week. And the only difference is the messaging. We have to write different copy. And that's why I have 2 copywriters, one really good for technical writing, one for more of a free flow writing style. And we're looking at hiring another copywriter with a little bit more of a technical production background.
And obviously you have someone who does graphics as well.
We do. Yeah. We have 2 people doing graphics.
Don't you find it amazing how many people don't understand messaging and clients? I mean, the first thing I ask for a service industry is who calls you more, the wife or the husband? Well, I don't know. Why? Well, because if the wife's calling, you want to make sure your copyright is geared a little bit more towards the way a female thinks versus men, because we think differently. Nothing wrong with that. And I think the best example I had, that was one time we did a home builder. That again, back then, 10, 12 years ago, a lot of women would call a home builder when they were frustrated that their husband couldn't find a house, they didn't like what's going on, or they hadn't made the phone call. And it was amazing how many stupid phone calls we got off a little post-it. It looked like on the side of the website that said, "Honey, call this guy." Seriously, something stupid like that adds to conversion when you know who's going to be calling you and who's going to be looking at your information.
Yeah.
It helps to be witty as well, Glenn, with your marketing.
Yep.
Really good stuff. Well, now this topic that I want to bring up just here in this moment is easily going to be going to spill over into the next time that we have you on Blabbit, because I see we're rounding the bend on the end of this episode. But I want to go back to what you mentioned before about being a professional golfer. And I want to go back to the experience of realizing that you have to pivot in your business, realizing you have to make an adjustment. Now, I understand sometimes these changes that we go through are thrust upon us for whatever reason. And sometimes it's just that day where you go, oh, right, I've got to make some sort of a change. So, and I'm not asking specifically about the shift from being a golfer to the business that you're in now, but really any experience in your life. What was the motivation for making that shift of your perspective?
Well, it was definitely something that happened to me. I got pregnant with my daughter.
Well, that's a very eye-opening experience.
So golf coaching, I hear a lot of stories about people who decide to become entrepreneurs because they hate what they do. That was not my case scenario in any way. I loved being a golf coach, and I still miss it sometimes. I really loved it. I was really good at it. However, it required 6 months of travel. Golf coaching is a lot of traveling. Your tournaments are not 1 day or overnighters. They are 3 to 5 day trips every single time you go somewhere. And so that was not how I wanted to be a mom. So it was really me trying to figure out what could I do that still allowed me to control my schedule. I knew I wanted something virtual because I am a nomad by spirit. I'm in Pittsburgh right now, by the way, not in my home base of New York. Got here yesterday. And I wanted to be able to be home with my daughter when she was little. And so I went to a career coach and really went through a process and fell into virtual assistants. And there are a lot of things from my coaching career as I'm moving into now being a seasoned business owner officially. I made it through the first 5 years. I'm no longer a startup. I realize more and more that the coaching background really translates into what I do as a business owner. I am a coach of my team. I mean, I am the leader of my team. I am managing my team. I'm managing my clients. Just like you said, Glenn, I come in with the approach that I'm going to create the systems for you. We do a daily report every day and give to our clients that I insist on. We do that for anything that we do on a daily basis. We do weekly reports of anything we have to do weekly. And we have consistent conversations with our clients, at least bi-monthly on Zoom. But that is really me as a coach. That's the stuff I learned as a coach, and the whole idea of consistency and creating a consistent practice and how that actually creates results at the end of the day. And the final piece that I use consistently that I think really gives me an advantage is I start with the goal in mind. So, one of the first things I ask in that consult call is, what would you like to implement if you had time, money, and resources to do so? Like, what's the big goal here? When we achieve the perfect admin relationship with you as an outsourced admin department, what does that look like? And how do we get there?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's almost the top of the hour. And I know we have a hard out today. So thank you very much for joining us again. If anyone would like to contact you, what's the easiest way to do so?
Right on LinkedIn, just write my name. It's spelled correctly in the promo, everybody. So just write my name in the search engine under people, and all of my information's right there. Link to my website. You can DM me directly and be happy to have a conversation.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, MerriLyn. Really, really quite insightful as always, and delightful as always.
Yes, likewise. This was super fun, guys. I look forward to coming back. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Everyone watching, we'll see you back at the same channel, same time next week. Take care, everyone.